Hi, Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and here's another interview in my series of interviews with subscribers. Enjoy! Okay, welcome. Today on the Idiot Quilter Presents, I have two people this time, so I'm doubling our fun up here. And I have Anne and I have Diane, and I'm going to let each just introduce themselves and tell us where they're from and just give us a very brief background about yourselves as well. I know what the background is because you so kindly sent me the bio, but I'm the only one that got it. So we'll see. So we'll start with you, Anne. So what's your full name? Where are you located? And a brief little bio.
Sure. I'm Anne Lucietto. I am actually located in West Central Indiana. If anyone knows where Lafayette or West Lafayette, Indiana is, you know that Purdue University is located nearby. So I've only lived here a handful of years. I grew up and was raised in Northern Illinois. And that's where all this started. So this is kind of fun. When I was a little kid, my mother would drop me off with my great-grandma, my grandma. And my great-grandma was a perfectionist when it came to quilting, and I hated being with her. She'd give me a needle and my own little thread, and I'd work on it, and I'd get it all done. And then she would be like, that's not enough. The stitches are too long. Stitches are too short. What did you do with the thread? It's all gnarly. And then she'd make me take it out. And then I would have these pieces of fabric with huge holes in it. And I'd go, great grandma, I need new fabric. She goes, no, you don't. You can make do with what you have. We're going to sew together some pretty nasty looking pieces of fabric for a young child. But as I got older, I got interested in other things. My dad's mother was a big crocheter. And so she taught me how to crochet. And I thought that was kind of cool. And for me, it was more of a bonding exercise. And my other grandma, well, she liked to make clothes. And she was the one who always had the 10 different aprons in the drawer and, you know, that kind of thing. And the cute little dresses that she made. And then she would give me fabric and tell me to quilt, but she wouldn't take the stitches out. So that was a better experience for me. My mother liked to make our clothes. When I was little, I had cute little dresses and jumpers and smock. Everything was smocked in those days. It was really cool. And so I learned how to do some of the smocking. That was a trick. And of course, I was young, so it wasn't perfect, but it was really cool to watch that fabric gather up. So I've had this thing going on for years. And I sewed when I was in college. I went to engineering school and I was sewing, and then I kind of slowed down. Got a job at a nuclear power plant, got married. I still made some stuff. My husband bought me a Pfaff sewing machine. He wanted me to make him a shirt. I never did, but never a shirt. So I went ahead and I did all that, and then life got really crazy. One of my goals was to become a professor one day and help students transition from school to their engineering career. So I needed to climb the corporate ladder, which I did. I did a lot of different things, a lot of different industries. And then I quit my job and I went back and I had to get a doctorate to be able to go teach. So that's what I did. And all of my sewing's been sitting on the side in boxes all this time, right? So we move, I get tenure, and those boxes started to open. We have a 3-car garage, and over the 3-car garage is my sewing room. Oh. And so I have all but 2 machines are out. The 2 I need to fix them. They're old Singers. They're almost featherweights, not quite. So I'd have some motor work to do and stuff like that on there. But I've got this playroom, and I go play in it, and it's been great fun. I make all kinds of things now, so I'm back at it.
Wow. That's amazing that that you have a whole different career from what you started out with, and like an engineer. Really, that's impressive. An engineer for that kind of thing, and then into sewing. But then again, quilting too is very mathematical, as is engineering. So I can see the relationship. So Diane, I know you're also trained as an engineer as well, according to your bio.
Yes.
So first of all, what's your full name? Where are you located? And
Okay.
give us your bio.
My name is Diane Peters, and I'm located in Flint, Michigan. I teach at Kettering University, a small private university in Flint. My background is in some ways similar to Anne's, in some ways different. I didn't have the experiences with somebody ripping out my stitches. And I'm actually the one who got my mom into quilting. I did it first. She sewed a lot. She sewed clothing for me and my 4 siblings. And she taught me how to sew, but I was the one who kind of somehow picked up quilting. And I don't even remember what it was that got me started, but I like the geometry and the shapes and the precision, and the drafting skills from quilting actually carried over well when I learned drafting in high school. And then when I did it in my engineering career. So I started doing things, and like Anne, my first things were not good, because when you're first starting out, of course they're not. But I got better over time. I still have some of my first quilts, and the stitches are huge. That's maybe a little exaggeration, but not by much. The color choices and fabric choices are quirky. We'll leave it at that. Creative, perhaps. But over time, I got better at it. And it's a great stress relief. And like Anne, I went off to school. I got a degree in engineering. I worked in industry. I think between the two of us, we've covered pretty much the entire mechanical engineering field. We're very complementary in that sense. What I haven't done, she has, and vice versa. And then after roughly 13 years in industry, I quit my job in Illinois, which is where I met Anne, sold my house, moved back to Michigan, which is the state I grew up in, got a PhD, and became a professor. And there have been ups and downs with how much quilting I've done over that time. Sometimes I did a lot. Sometimes it wasn't quite so much, depending on what was going on in my life. But I also have accelerated a little bit over the past year or two, because among other things, it is, like I said, very good stress relief. And the world has been rather stressful. And it's wonderful to be able to do something creative and make things that are beautiful in a world that sometimes can be all too ugly.
Yeah, true. So it sounds to me like both of you have come from a family background in sewing, and that's what really influenced you. And I think you both said you were influenced by your grandparents as well as your mothers. Is that correct?
My mother, I didn't spend a lot of time with my grandmothers as a child, because they lived in other states. They loved seeing what I did, but they didn't have that kind of an influence. I believe my mother learned how to sew from her mother, so it's influence at one remove.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds really awesome. I'm still mind boggled that you two ladies have such professional careers and you quilt. I mean, I think that's wonderful. I really do. I mean, the reason I think that's wonderful is because, first of all, in this day and age, when we're constantly talking about women being on the same footing as men, here you are doing something that is traditionally a woman's hobby, but yet you're both in a non-traditional field that you don't think of immediately for women. So, I guess you ladies can do it all. So
well, we sure try. But, one of the things I wanted to point out, this is something that we've talked about, because we actually spend a couple hours a night, almost every night, with the exception of conferences and whatnot, on the phone, quilting and sewing and whatnot. And it's interesting, because one of the things we've talked about is a lot of the people that we know that have done quilting or are doing something like this have a background that's technical. So, that's what they do. So they learn this skill in math and all this other stuff, and then they moved into a STEM field. And so we're starting to find more and more of that. We find that very intriguing.
Yeah, I think so. Whereas for me, I have a background in literature. So, but I only started quilting about 4 years ago, if it's even been that long. So, and mathematically, when I try to create a pattern, I'm a little mathematically challenged in that way. So, but I'm managing. Okay, so I'm going to move on then to what your favorite creation is, if you have one, and why. And I'll start with you, Diane. What's your favorite creation?
Oh, that is actually a hard one to answer because it changes periodically.
Yeah.
I'll have a favorite and then I'll acquire a new favorite when I do something new, and then I'll go back to another one. I think if I had to cite a favorite right now, it would probably be I think it would probably be the bird's quilt that I started last year, and I've got the quilt top done and ready for quilting. And the reason it's a favorite is because it allowed me to kind of expand out of stuff I had done before. I've done a lot of piecing, and I really enjoy that, but I decided to tackle something a little different, a quilt that includes both piecing and applique. And so the reason that I think it's my favorite at the moment is because it allowed me to stretch myself and create something that's beautiful, that I like, that's really cool, that also was something I wasn't initially sure I could do. So it wasn't just more of the same, still beautiful and enjoyable, but it was something where I was actually making myself learn something new.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about quilting too. Always trying to challenge yourself. You know, you've done that, got it. Let's move on to something a little bit more difficult or challenging. So, how would you describe yourself then, Diane, as a quilter? Are you traditional? Are you modern? Are you everything, experimental?
Well, there's a couple of things. I think I tend to be a little more on the traditional side than the modern, but every once in a while I'll do something radically different from stuff I've done before, just so that I don't settle into a rut, try something new, see if I like it. So I think I like a lot of traditional patterns, and I do a lot of that. I do a combination. Sometimes I'll do things that are existing patterns that I get out of a book or a magazine. I have many, many, many years worth of Quilters newsletter magazines in my sewing room at home. But then other times I'll just have some fabrics and I'll start kind of playing with them and putting them together, and then finding another one and then saying, well, what can I do with it? So sometimes I start with the pattern and look for fabrics. Other times I start with fabrics and look for a pattern. So it's kind of a combination. If you look at my pile of quilts I'm going to be quilting this winter, obviously during the summer, I don't want a big pile of stuff in my lap.
Yeah.
It's a combination of some things that are my own creation based on existing patterns, some things that are my own creation just out of nowhere. I just started playing with things and what did I come up with? And then some things that are something from a magazine or a book. But then again, it's also my own interpretation, because I'm going to choose my own fabrics, which are going to differ slightly from the ones in the picture, and therefore it's going to be my own when it gets to that. But that's kind of a summary of where I am.
Yeah, that's right. So you're kind of whatever grabs you kind of person, I guess.
Would say so.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a creative outlet. So, Anne, I'm going to ask you the same question. What's your favorite creation, if you have one, and what kind of quilt are you?
I do. In the beginning of 2020, I took up wool applique. The way our house is set up upstairs, I have that large room. Downstairs, sometimes I like to just sit downstairs and stitch with the light and, whatever. And so I was doing a lot of wool applique, and I found these really cool patterns. It's Granny's Legacy. They do this one. It's called the Arborist Journal, and it's got a tree, the shape of a tree, and then it's got the leaves from the tree, and if there's any seed pods or anything, it's got that. And then that's all hand done. And those are quilt blocks, and then you build it into the quilt. And I give it a try, and oh my goodness, I love that quilt. And I think it's the mixed media. I think it's part of, I really enjoy that whole arborist type thing. But it was like putting a wool quilt together was a challenge for sure, because I had never done it before. But I learned how to really perfect. It's funny because if you look at the 1st and the 12th, because there's 2 of them, you can see
got better, right?
Oh yeah, great grandma would have ripped up that first one. That one. So so that's what I was looking at. And I'm like, it's kind of cool. And I'm actually sitting in this room is my office at home. And I'm actually going to put it up above my desk once I can get it clear enough to sit on it, to put a nail in the wall. But,
So how would you label yourself as a quilter? Like traditional, modern?
I tend to err on the conservative side, but I stick my neck out every now and then. I just did one. It's pumpkins. It's called Hocus Pocus is the name of the pattern. It's relatively easy, but it's black, gray, and with the green leaves, and then I used a off-white background.
That would look really kind of cool, I think.
I was kind of, you can ask Diane. I'm like, I don't know if I like these colors.
Until you start working with it.
Yeah.
Wow, that black pumpkin, that wasn't working out good for me. But when you put the whole thing together, I'm like, I have it hanging in my workroom, and I'm like, I like this.
Yeah.
At first, I was going to quilt it myself on my. I have a Janome M7.
Yeah.
I was going to do it, and I thought, you know what? I've got my friend across town who's got the long arm. I'm thinking she's going to do it for me.
Yeah.
Because it's just, but I try different things. I'll lay it out on the table and look at it. Do I do anything avant-garde? No. I do look for blended colors. I love yellows and purples, as you can see, I have a yellow shirt on. But, those are the things I try to do. I was in a group online that was exchanging last year orange peels. We did, I think, an 8 or 9 inch. I don't remember right now. But we did like one orange peel on it. And I put it together and I'm like, boy, this is boring. Then I grabbed some extra orange peels I had and put it on and made it into this like big, almost 3D flower. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that on the whole thing. I'm just going to do that on every other one. So I was playing with that. And that's one of my favorite quilts. I literally have it on my chair, by the TV when we're watching the news, and I either have it on me or be sitting on it or something, but it's always there. And how was I to know?
Yeah, well, you don't. You see, you got to work outside of your comfort zone sometimes, and you always surprise yourself when you do. At first you have that queasy feeling, right? Like, this might be a mistake. But I have found that by the time, if you persevere, and by the time you get to the end of it, it's one of the things you end up loving the most. Right. I've had that happen to me too many times. Yeah. So you're talking about this being your office, and so this is your sewing area? Because that's my next question. No. Okay. Describe your sewing area.
It's the area above the garage, the 3-car garage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really big. I'm still unpacking. We only moved here 4 years ago. Well, I was working on getting tenure, and now I'm going for the next step. But the one end is I've got a table with the M7 on it. I've got my little workhorse Pfaff on it. I mean, that poor thing's 35 years old and it just chugs away. It's great. From our other house, we had a sofa table we didn't use here, so I have it in between. I've stored all my battings under there, all my flannels under there, because sometimes I use flannel instead of batting because I like the feel better.
Yeah.
I have 2 cutting boards on top. I've got all my threads, my toolkit for it's a good sized table. And then I have these shelves all around. It looks like a quilt shop, with all my little colors and whatnot. So, and then I have an area with my embroidery machine. I have a 550E.
Yep. I have one of those too.
I know. That's how I found you.
Yeah.
So I have that actually on an old computer desk, which works great because where the pull-out drawer goes,
right,
all the hoops in there.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. And then it's got a little side piece, and I have, like a box with whatever I'm working on. I have all the colors, the threads,
everything there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have another one with a lot of extra threads. So if those colors don't hit me, then I grab it.
Well, it sounds like a great setup. So, so Diane, how about you? I know you're in your office at work right now, so that's obviously not your sewing area, but
no, obviously not. I do have a room that I've dedicated to crafts and sewing at home. I have a bedroom that I use as my sewing area. So it's not nearly as big or grand as Ann's space over a 3-car garage. It's a basic bedroom. I've got a bunch of bins of fabric in the closet, a few spare clothes that I shove off to the side, but it's mostly bins of fabric, bags of fabric, piles of fabric. So a ton of fabric in there. I've got a couple of bookcases with quilting and crafting books. I've got an old Foot Locker there that I actually don't remember what's in it. I lost the key when I moved back in 2014, and eventually I'll either find the key or pry it open or reverse engineer and make a new key or something.
Yeah.
Or some other creative solution. But I've got 2 sewing machines. They're both older. One of them is a Viking machine that I actually bought used from my mother when she was buying a new machine. Hers was much nicer, that she was replacing was much nicer than my old white machine that I bought when I was in high school. So it was quite some time ago. That thing was a workhorse. That thing, I still have it. It still works. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles and features, but it still works. That thing's really solid.
Well, yeah, they don't make them as solid as they did 30 years ago, in the machines. So
I would agree with that.
A lot of plastic parts in the machines, whereas the old ones have like all metal for the most part in them, and they are a workhorse, as you said.
They are. They hold up really well. So I still have that one. I'll probably never get rid of it unless it's for somebody who I very much love who needs a sewing machine. Then I might be persuaded to. I've been toying with the idea that at some point I might buy a new machine, but I don't know which one yet. So I'm taking my time to think about that. But the one I've got works quite well, and it's got capabilities I actually probably haven't even begun to look into yet, because it is an embroidery machine as well.
Oh yeah.
And I just have not yet taken the time to sit down and figure out all the nuances of that. But that's something that maybe is in my long range goals for something I'd like to do at some point. But since it is just one bedroom and it's a moderate sized bedroom, it kind of spills out into other areas of the house, especially when I need space to spread things out, because I just don't have space. I have the floor, of course, but if I use the floor, the dogs will lay on it because it's comfy.
Oh yeah, of course they will. Cats and dogs, they love quilts. Yeah.
Oh, they adore quilts. They love playing on quilts. It makes it a little hard to work on them.
Yeah.
So I have a big dining room table, a huge cherry wood table in my front room. So I go downstairs to that when I need to spread things out. And that's where I spread things out. So I have a sewing room, but it also kind of grows into other areas of the house as needed.
Yep. I know what you're talking about. So then, Diane, do you have a favorite tool or technique?
There's a lot of great tools and techniques out there. A good basic tool that is so effective at so many things is just the rotary cutter. I do remember the first time I started quilting, I did not have a rotary cutter. I used scissors to cut things out, and that works fine. But when you're cutting out squares, and some quilts take a lot of squares or triangles, oh my goodness, getting that nice sized ruler and the rotary cutter just makes it so much easier to be precise, to be accurate, to get good results. So just there's tons of new tools all the time, and they've all got their place and their use, but the good basic rotary cutter and a good ruler, you just cannot get away from that.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you the same question. Tool or technique? Or both?
Okay, so tool. They're going to laugh. So I come from the cardboard from the pantyhose template era, right?
Yep.
Grandma and great grandma always saved those. You need them. Yeah. And you can write on them too.
Yes. Yep. My grandmother did the same thing.
I still have some in an envelope, and I cannot part with them because grandma's. Oh my goodness, it's so funny. Oh, and she saved those little cards from Rick Rack. Remember that?
Oh yes.
I remember those too.
Yeah.
Oh, those come in so handy because you could like hold it and cut it. Oh yeah. But anyway, it's really funny because what I think of is how to cut the fabric accurately. And being an engineer, I tend to do that.
Yeah. Imagine.
It gets a little crazy over here. But my favorite tool is a stainless steel ruler with a cork back.
And why is that?
Because I don't have the problem of the rotary blade, that newfangled thing, It doesn't roll over my finger. It stays with the stainless. And it's so funny because I was telling Diane, well, look at all these rulers they have and all the, and I could just do that with turning my ruler. Look at that, and I have a protractor. I'm going to admit, I have bought some of these things. Okay, I have.
Yeah.
They do come in handy, but that steel ruler, I'm not kidding you. I have two. I put one away. Last night I was thinking, I think I'm going to pull the second one out. First one stays at the table where I do my cutting. Second one goes at this other table because I just might need it there instead of having to sit down and go, dang, I left it over there. So my cork bottomed stainless steel ruler. I know this sounds strange, but that's what it is.
No, I can see it. Sometimes the simple things are the best things.
I'm just thrilled that we have rotary cutters because, my, can we, when I was sitting there as a kid cutting this stuff out, then they would measure it. If I didn't get it right, we got in trouble. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't good.
Yes, the rotary cutter has revolutionized quilting. I'm pretty sure of that.
No doubt. No doubt.
So,
and then you asked about technique.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The technique that I like is, and I found this when I got the M7, is the flanged binding.
Yeah.
Have you done the flange binding?
I have only done it once. Yeah.
Oh, I did it a couple times. You can ask Diane. Pretty much do it all the time.
Yep. I've heard it mentioned many times.
Yeah, it makes such a pretty miter on the corner and it's clean looking. Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's actually, there's a lot of people that probably would stay away from that because they think that's really complicated. But once you've done it once, it's not. It's really not. But it looks, like you said, it looks very nice, gives a real professional finish to something. And people look at it and go, ooh, you're a master.
Yeah.
You just smile and go, darn right I am. Yep. So my next question then is, if you had all the money in the world, is there a piece of equipment you would like to invest in? I'll ask you that, Diane.
Oh, that's a really good question. If I had all the money in the world, well, for one thing, I would go into all of my favorite quilt shops if I had all the money in the world, and I would start piling up everything on the table that I even thought I might remotely like to try. I would be like totally making their sales for the week, probably.
Maybe the month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, if it's unlimited money, why don't I just buy up the whole place?
Right.
But I've seen a lot of interesting new features on some sewing machines. So if I had all the money in the world, I would probably start looking at the machines. I might get a long arm machine and try that because I've done all of my quilting by hand myself. And that might be fun to try. I would probably go through and try every template that they have that does all these different things because there are some cool specialized templates. Probably buy a brand new, just basic sewing machine. I don't know, that would be fun. The ultimate shopping spree.
Yeah, wouldn't it? Yeah. Just buy the whole store and make that into your sewing room.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that.
So how about you, Anne?
I'm sitting here shaking my head because I'm like, I wanted a long arm for a long time, and then I realized that I probably wouldn't even have the time until I retired to do anything with it. So retirement's a long ways off. I don't see it happening anytime soon. I have a spouse who had a stroke, so that set us back a little bit. But I don't know. I got a nice machine. I got a little help to get that one.
Yeah, the M7.
The M7, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've got it too, and I love that.
Yeah. And then the 550. So I was getting kind of fed. I was tired of not having what I wanted.
Right.
Sort of already did it.
Yeah.
My FAF is it was an 1171. So it's all mechanical buttons, which like you guys were talking about earlier.
The old style. Yeah.
So that thing's not going anywhere, but it has its limitations. I wanted to do some more fun stuff. So, I don't know. Sure. I really can't answer that question because I feel like right now I've got my challenges of learning both machines,
Yep.
And the stuff that I've been able to crank out is not all due to the pandemic. A lot of it has to do with the quality of the machine I'm dealing with too. And my dad always said, your work is only as good as you and your machine.
True.
I think
Yep.
he had a point.
Yeah. I mean,
it definitely makes a difference.
I started out using a cheap old brother machine that I bought for $180 at Costco. And that's what got me hooked into quilting. And then I moved my way up, and I've been through several machines since then. But I do love my M7 and I do love my 550E. So, and people who have watched my channel for a while know I used to have a 15,000 MC Janome, which had the combination embroidery in that, and I had hell with that. But that's a story for another day, because, well, that's a 5-part series on my channel.
There you go.
So,
there you go.
yeah.
I have a 77,000 something
Yeah.
fact that I bought probably 25 years ago, and it's a combination machine. I had an awful time getting programs into it. I had someone to show me how to do it. I struggled with it. It was when computers were still relatively new.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, we're not doing that again. So when I got the Janome, the first thing I said to the guy is, show me how to load the program.
Yeah.
And once I figured out a couple tricks, man, I was off and running. And thank heavens for Facebook pages.
Yes.
There's a lot of people with, you have a focused Facebook page on a particular machine, and I can go, hey, I'm having trouble with the bobbin. What do I do? Oh, I didn't quite get that threaded right. So like that, very important.
So I know that both of you get together, I'm assuming virtually, to sew and things like that. Have either one of you ever been a member of a guild or an online group? I'll ask you first, Anne. Anne.
Oh, me. Oh, I thought you said Diane. Okay, I'm sorry.
I mean, I know. I'm sorry. The two names are kind of close.
A little similar.
I actually just started. I just made a 9-patch, a small 9-patch. It was kind of a fun one. One of the pieces fell out. It was a little guy hanging on for dear life. But I used 9-patch squares that I had swapped with people 25, probably closer to 30 years ago.
Right.
So that was back when and we did that by computer. So that was still the 88 days, I'm dating myself again. Right. So I did a lot of that. But then once I started climbing the corporate ladder and getting more intense jobs, then it was time to put things aside.
Yeah.
Recently, I thought to myself about a year and a half ago, I think I'm going to look and see what's out there, see who's out there. And I found there's one group, it's US and Canada, and we make usually around 12-inch squares. It's in a theme, sometimes a specific color. Right now we're doing one with fall, and I made an embroidered caramel apple. Okay, something different.
Because you can.
And so I sent that in. And then, we send it to one person that's distributed. And then I belong to another group that's where I did the orange peels. And so we're not necessarily a guild, but we swap things and we talk about techniques and how it works. I've wanted to join one locally, but they meet during the day, and that's when So,
you have to work.
I got students expecting me to help them out. Which is just fine. I love them dearly, but I can't do it then. So I've just been kind of at a disadvantage because of that. But because of the other swapping, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything, to be honest with you.
Well, no, and sometimes groups aren't for everybody either, as well. Like I belong to a couple of online groups, but I had a bad experience with a guild, and I won't go back to a guild. But that's a story again for another day. But how about you, Diane? You belong to any groups or have in the past, or?
I don't belong to any guilds or groups or anything like that. I do have a number of friends who quilt. There's, of course, Anne, you know about that very well. That's why we're here together. But my mother also has taken up quilting. She kind of got that from me and started doing it so we can exchange notes, and I can raid her stash for fabric, and I send her pictures of things that I'm doing. And then I've got a couple of people I know who aren't as close as Anne to me, but who do some quilting, and we occasionally exchange notes and things about what we're doing and share ideas and things, but nothing that's well organized.
I see. So that brings me to asking you then, when you need assistance or there's something you don't know how to do and you want to find out more, do you have a favorite source or expert you look up or go to?
Well, I go to a lot of different places for things like that. I've got several decades worth of quilting magazines, like I said, and they have some tutorials in them. So looking back at those sometimes gives me something. I've got a bunch of books on various techniques. Sometimes I'll talk it over with my mother. She's very active in some of the groups that are associated with the fabric store that's an hour north of where I live in my hometown. So sometimes if there's something that I want to know about, she'll kind of talk with them. And then, of course, there's always the internet. There's the throwing a question out into the ether on any one of a number of places and just asking people, hey, what do you think? Or doing a Google search, and it brings up a wide variety of things, both useful and not.
Yes.
So there's a huge variety of different sources there. The big thing is just kind of wading through all of it and finding the good parts.
Yeah, that's true. And Anne, what about you?
I've taken classes like a long time ago, and I got very frustrated.
And why is that?
Because the people weren't doing things efficiently.
Oh. Oh, I know how you feel about that, because I'm the same way. I can't stand it when people are not doing things efficiently. If they're wasting, because I feel they're wasting my time while I'm there.
Oh, and they're just whatever it is, it's all sorts of stuff. So I'm like, no, not for me. I like to figure stuff out on my own. I mean, I know how fabric is made. I know what it looks like. I know how it behaves, and I know different fabrics. So I'll play with stuff. I'll incorporate new things in. There's a couple things I want to learn how to do. So I found a couple videos online that were actually short, sweet, and to the point. And I just take a look at that and I go for it. Like, one of the things I'm interested in doing right now is a couple of small trapunto wall hangings as Christmas gifts. And so I downloaded the patterns. Okay. And they have a video that comes with it. And so I haven't had time to watch it yet, but when I do, I'll probably do it at midnight some night when I'm trying to
Right.
sleep with the phone in my face. But, so those are the types of things that, I'm always looking for some new technique or something. And I've learned a lot over the years. Just, I'm really self-taught. I don't have, other than Diane, I really don't have anyone that's as attuned to the fabric arts as I am. Most people have come to me going, oh, look at that. You put that on a kitchen towel. That's nice. And I'm like,
yeah, okay. True. So here's a chance for you to plug your favorite quilt store. Do you still buy your supplies from a store, or do you do them all online? Because, a lot of people have had to go online now with COVID. Okay.
I'm in an unusual situation. I don't want to get into it on here, but we don't really go out. If there are people without masks, I can't go there.
Right.
For these other reasons. So, I have established relationships with stores in different places. Would you mind terribly if I talked about a little bit about each one?
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So my very own quilt shop is where I get my boutiques. So she is my boutique supplier. She is in Park Rapids, Minnesota. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Great customer service. She's excellent. There's another one, the Bakery Fabrics. It's in, I think I'm saying this right, Belforge, South Dakota.
Sounds good to me.
What's that?
Sounds good to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's north of Rapid City. I want to go there sometime. Her store looks amazing. But I had a pattern of something I want to make, and I sent it over to her, and I said, take a look at this. Do you have this fabric? And she goes, well, I've got all but two. I think I've got something close. And she was able to do a great substitution. And I had the fabric within a couple days.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm like, okay, that's next in line.
Yeah.
And then there's another one, Pink Sand Beach Designs. She's also an engineer. And she started, she's retired though, so she has more time than Diane and I do. But she started her work by making bags, and the way she does zippers is fantastic. Anybody that's made her bags, these things look polished and beautiful, and oh my goodness, they're easy to do. So, but she has a big fabric store, and she's gone online, and so that's really good. And there's some other places too that I'll go to for different things.
Right.
But the ones that, if they pop up, I'm like, all right, let me check it out, see what they have today. I've been trying not to buy too much because I need to catch up.
Yeah, I know. He or she that dies with the most fabric wins, right?
Oh, my daughter thinks I have more than anyone in the world. And then Diane told her all about her mom. And her mom's got a lot. She's got way more than I do.
My mom wins.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
So Diane, then do you have a favorite store or two? Or?
Yeah, I do. I have one particular favorite, and it's one that I actually years ago worked in for one summer. The summer between high school and college, I worked for a fabric store called Material Mart, and it's a family-owned business. It's under new owners. The previous owner retired and sold it, and it's up in Midland, Michigan. Material Mart on Ashman Circle in Midland, Michigan, and they have really good quality stuff, and they're really, really accommodating. If I have something that I need, then I can either find it on their website, or if it's not on their website and I want it, I can have my mother look for it because she goes there a lot. They can either ship or they can put something aside for when mom comes in. I know them well. They know me. They know my mom. They love seeing pictures of what I do. And it's just a really, really great place with really great people and great products. And one of the first things I did when we first started coming out of hibernation was when I made a trip up to see my parents. I planned some time to go over there with mom and just took a counter and started making a
piles. Yeah,
piling up more and more fabric.
Yep,
that would be my favorite.
I'm a fabric slut, so and they always ask me.
That's a good term. I like that. Yeah,
I've got a great quilt store in my area. The ladies there are just excellent, and when I pick up all this stuff and they're, well, what are you making with it? I don't know. It's pretty. I just want it.
I resemble that remark.
When they ask me that question, I have the same response. It's like, just leave me alone. I like it.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out later.
Yeah, that's what I figure, Well, you know what it is too with fabric. If you see something you really like it, but you say, well, I'm not making anything right now. When you go back to get it, it'll be gone. Mm-hmm. And that'll be the end of that. So, you got to get in there and get to it. So my next question for both of you is, what's your challenges in the future? Do you have a goal, a bucket list sort of a thing or whatever? I'll ask you first, Anne.
Bucket list. I have such a long list of quilts I want to do. It's not even I literally have in my room, thank heavens I have the room. As we've been unpacking things, because I had a little more time over the last year and a half, I am this glutton for buying plastic bins, and so I'll throw the pattern in, I'll throw the fabric in, I'll throw the thread in, everything. Then when I'm ready, I grab it and I start going.
That's a great method.
Yeah, I've been kind of, and it works. It works well.
Yeah.
It keeps everything organized too. I don't have to go there. Where was that thread? Where did I put that?
Yeah,
have to worry
exactly.
About that.
So you have a long list of things to get through. So as long as you live for the next 5,000 years, you'll get them all done, right?
I think that's about right. Yeah. And, I've been doing this mix up with the embroidery machine and some of the quilting and kind of around with stuff. Yeah. There's just some really cool stuff. I've been watching. I watched you had some of that 3D stuff you did with the lace.
The lace.
Saw that on one of your videos. They call it lace. It's where you use the dissolvable stuff and then they
the abstract.
So I've been sort of thinking about trying that, but I don't necessarily like the way they do those connections. So trying to figure out how I want to do that. I've got a couple of ideas about taking some of these, one of the really well-known, very popular places out of Utah. I'm thinking about making some of those things into ornaments instead of putting them on a quilt block.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of messing around with that as an idea. So just things like that. And I've been playing around with wool balls and just doing other stuff onto quilts that's a little non-traditional. Why not? You know, I've made so many quilts now. Everybody's like, what are you going to do with them? I hang them on my walls.
Yeah, I know. I've made so many too, and people keep saying, "Well, what are you doing with them all?" And I've got to start giving some away.
Oh,
It's piling up. I mean, how many quilts does one person need? My guest bedroom has a lot of the quilts already on the bed. Anybody comes and ends up staying over it, it's going to be. I can slip a pea under it. They can lay on it, see if they're princess. I don't
right.
know.
They'll never feel it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so how about you, Diane? What's on your bucket list?
Oh, there are so many things that I'd like to do. Some of it is variations on things I've already done. There's always room to be better on the techniques you're good at. I'd like to do a little bit more with some of the applique techniques, because that's something I haven't done a lot of, and I want to kind of think about what I want to do with that and try that and really improve on that. There's a lot of different ways you can do applique, so that's something that I'd like to do. And I may start doing some embroidery at some point and incorporating that. I don't know yet, but you mentioned giving some of them away. I'm actually in the process of making a quilt that I'm going to give away. I've given some to friends before, especially baby quilts for friends, but I'm making one right now that has a bunch of paw print fabrics on it. And I'm planning, when it's done, to donate it to my local Humane Society for a silent auction that they do every year. So that'll be something that that can be beautiful and that can benefit a cause that I care about. But I would say if I had to say something that's on my list, I want to try some more of the applique, and I want to perhaps try some embroidery and incorporate that and kind of expand beyond some of the stuff that I'm already good at, although that's certainly fun to do.
Well, yeah, it's always good to have something that you're comfortable with to fall back on, but it's also good to stretch you out a little bit further, right? Because it keeps your mind going. And
oh, absolutely.
And too many people see, I've been retired now for almost 10 years, and I only started quilting about 3.5, 4 years ago. But what I like about it is it keeps my mind active, because I think too many people, they retire, they live for their job. And I mean, I was a high school teacher for 31 years. I mean, I loved my job and everything, but when it was time to retire and I did, because I knew there was something more out there. Of course, that time I didn't know I was going to go into quilting, but now I absolutely love it. And I love the variety. It's all kinds of sewing. And my husband, he got into sewing too. He's retired and he's doing garments. So
now that's an interesting combination. It's interesting what you said about being a teacher, because I think that doing things that are new to me and uncomfortable and stretch me make me a better teacher and a better professor, because I know the feeling of not knowing what you're doing and can better empathize with my students the first time they see something that to me is obvious because I've done it many times before, but to them is new. So I think that's an interesting thing. Yeah. And maybe Anne has had the same experience, that doing something that's new to you that you're not good at yet can make you a better teacher.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
I think so. So my last question for both of you is, if you have any advice for anyone who may be just getting started in this form of art, because I do believe it's a form of art, what would you say to them? What would be the key piece of advice? Anne, do you want to go first on that?
Yeah, I think especially as an adult, right? Be patient with yourself. Watch videos, ask questions. There's so many resources today for people that really are. A little while ago, I was munching on a sandwich for lunch, and I was reading the embroidery page that I have on for the Janome that I have. And one lady said, "I'm new at this. What thread do I use? How do I buy a starter pack?" That's the place to do it. Ask those questions. People tend to be super helpful. The only problem I found is I feel bad for that woman, because she is going to get plastered with 10 different types of thread to buy.
Right.
Everybody's got their favorite one, Yep. So you have to be judicious in those questions that you ask.
Yes, I think you're right about that. Yep. Because everybody is very helpful. I have found this since I've entered the quilting community. everybody's very helpful, and sometimes it's sensory overload. You get, or information overload. You get just, you ask us what you thought was a simple question, and you come back out more confused sometimes. But I think that's where the patience comes in.
Well, I'm humored, and a lot of these people who do the original post will write, "Thank you so much for the information."
Yeah.
15 other things after that. That's like,
yeah, yeah, exactly. And Diane, what would be your advice?
Well, I think I would say that when you're starting out, don't be overly ambitious, but also don't underestimate yourself. So don't try to do the most difficult thing ever as your first project, but don't think that you have to do 20 or 50 or some insane number of simple things before you get there. Start with something that's simple enough that you can do a credible job on it so that you don't get discouraged, but at the same time, push yourself a little bit. Don't stick to only doing the very simplest beginner things for years and years and years. So it's kind of a balance between challenging yourself and making sure you're taking on something that you're equipped to be successful at.
So I guess you would say be fearless then.
I think that's a good thing. I mean, come on, it's not like it's going to blow up on you. If it doesn't work out right, you have something that isn't exactly what you wanted, but it's not like it's going to catch on fire in your lap.
Nope, exactly right. So that takes me to the last of my questions. And I think this is really interesting, having two people talking about this, because we get different perspectives on them, and yet there seems to be a commonality between it too. So that's something new. I haven't done this before with two. So thank you for that, outside of my box as well. So are any parting words from either one of you? Just jump in if you've got anything you'd like to say before I say bye-bye.
I'd like to say something about going back to what you said about being a little bit surprised about the engineering and quilting link. And that is that people should not kind of limit themselves as to what they can or can't do. We're quilters, which is a very female-oriented thing traditionally, although obviously not all women, because people like yourself do it. And engineering is traditionally male. So I would tell people, don't let yourself be put in any box, even if it's a non-traditional box.
True.
If it works for you, if you're interested in it, do it. And if you're combining things that people don't think go together, there's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead and do it. That's your own unique self and contribution to the world.
Yeah, I agree. And Anne, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah. I mean, and kind of in line with that, my father, he and I were really close, but one of the things he always said is, you could do anything you put your head to. You can do anything you want to do. He had a lot of people, talking about this non-traditional thing. He had a lot of people telling him, why are you supporting your girls? Why do you let your girls do this? Why? And he'd be like, because they can do whatever they want to do. And we both have done fairly well. So I'd say we've done really well, actually, both of us. But, so I think that's super important. Don't ever discount yourself. Give it a shot. What's the worst you could say is I did it and failed? Okay. Or I did it and look at the cool stuff I make. Yeah.
And look what I learned. So
exactly.
Yeah. Well, ladies, thank you so much for spending the time with me for this interview. And it'll be up next week and everything. But I thought it was very interesting. I'm very much humbled by the fact that I'm in the presence of two professors here as well with it. So good luck with your careers and good luck with your quilting. And I am sure our paths are going to cross again sometime as well. So thanks so much for agreeing to this interview, and just stay on the line for a second here. I'm going to stop the recording, but so thank you very much.